There's a connection between low status and depression. I would love to touch on this because anything that sort of explains why depression exists, I think is almost helpful for people that deal with it because you just, instead of thinking your brain is broken, you just realize it's in a mode that's not serving you. This doesn't go for all depression, obviously, but I'd love for you to shed a little light on this.
Yeah, so there's a very strong link between depression and suicide and lack or loss of status. One of the ideas is that when we become depressed, it's because we're doing badly in the game. We're failing to find status, because status is such a fundamental need. When we feel we're lacking in status, to the subconscious kind of evolved brain, that signals, well, we're doing badly in this tribe. We're going to start losing resources. We're going to start losing security. And so what happens is we kind of, move to the back of the cave, as it were, and shelter. And we lose. The mind's trying to stop us going into battle with higher status people because it's too dangerous out there. When people study the causes of suicide, again, incredibly complex subject. It's not as simple as people who've lost status, but certainly in a lot of cases, that's what is found. It's people who have lost significant amounts of status, and I think the people who are most vulnerable often are the ones who've lost the most status rapidly. This is why I think Jeffrey Epstein did kill himself, because he's just a textbook example of somebody who was up here and went down there with enormous rapidity. So that's why I suspect I don't believe these conspiracies that it was a fit up. He's just a classic case of somebody that you could expect to take their own lives. So that's what they find. So it's when people kind of rapidly lose status. It's why the financial crisis, lots of people ended up committing suicide. So again, it's incredibly important, when they're, and also when we're left behind, people become vulnerable to suicidal ideation. So when we stay still and all our friends and everybody around us accelerates on, that could be very bad for our mental health. And again, as you say, it's not because there's anything wrong with us. It's because our brains are functioning correctly. Our brains are putting us into an emergency mode, because when we lack status, that's a dangerous situation for the human animal to be in.
I want to sort of clarify this too. Plenty of super successful people struggle with depression as well. So I don't want people to think like, oh, I have depression. Does that also mean I'm low status? Like, screw me. No. What the hell? This sucks. I want to clarify that there are many reasons for it.
Yeah, and of course, status is relative. I mean, one of the sort of the dangerous things about status is that we acclimatize to it very easily. So we become this person, and it's great for a while, and then but after a while we acclimatize. We want the next thing, and we want the next thing, and we want the next thing. And I think that's the interesting thing about super successful people is that from our lowly heights, you can look up at them and go, wow, you must be so happy. But of course, we know they're not happy. Often they're not happy, because status is relative. They're looking at the people around them and going, well, Jeff Bezos is looking at Branson and going, well, you've got to space before me. That's annoying, perhaps. And so they're playing a game. We play status games with the people closest to us. We don't play status games with distant people so much. We don't compare ourselves very often to the King of Thailand or Michelle Obama. If we did, we'd be very unhappy, because we're not those people, and we're never going to be those people. That's a form of kind of torture. We compare ourselves to the people around us. So people that you would consider high status are just as vulnerable to these mental health issues than people who consider low status, because they're comparing themselves to the people around them. So for a super wealthy person to suddenly live my life with my income, they could become seriously mentally ill, as insulting as that is to me. But it's the truth, right. That's how it works. That's how human cognition works.
Yeah, it is kind of sad. I feel bad for the guy who has to move into my house, which is probably the size of his, 12-car garage, yeah. Right? And it's like, yeah. No one in their right mind would feel bad for the hedge fund manager that's forced to downgrade into a 6,000 square foot or whatever house, house, and they only have 2 swimming pools. Not that I have this, by the way, but like Oh my gosh, there's another house in front of you before you get to the beach, you poor thing, right? Like this is all relative.
Yeah, but that's the craziness of it. Nobody in their right minds would feel sorry for that hedge fund manager, but he would be suffering he would be suffering sincerely and genuinely, not because he chooses to, because that's the human brain. You know, like I'm a fairly, you know, middle class, I'd say, and if I suddenly had to go and live in a house that is significantly below where I'm living now, I would be feeling, you know, depressed and, oh my God, this life is not worth living, which is incredibly insulting to the people who are very happily living in those kinds of houses now. It's not, you've got to remove that kind of the urge to morally judge people on this stuff, because it doesn't work, you know. And equally, you know, the people who are living in those houses are living in a kind of splendor that 100 years ago, they've got running water, television, electricity, you know, they can turn lights on and off. They're living by the standards of 100 years ago, fantastic, amazing lives, you know, working class people in their homes. But they would, you know, so it's all relative, and I think that's as weird as it sounds, it's given me a new kind of empathy for super successful people. I don't wish I was them quite so much anymore, because I understand that they experience the same pain as anybody else, and even though, as you say, nobody feels sorry for them, they still hurt, and because it's all relative.
If you like that clip and you want to see more just like this, subscribe to our channel for more, or click on the videos on screen now. To see full-length episodes, check out our main channel in the description below.